Hello.
Oh,
Tell me about, because we spoke about last week, um, the safety, the safety around the way that you sit and things like that.
mm.
Um, and on reflection from that, to extend it a little bit more, um, have you recognised some of your safety moves, I'm going to call them?
Mm.
Or, if you prefer to call them something else, what would.
Um, yeah, it gave me a lot to think about. Because like we talked about like how I sit in certain positions, and I just thought that's how I sat. But it were a way of protecting myself and keeping safe and stuff like that.
Are you recognising how you're sitting now?
Yeah,
Yeah. What does it feel like?
you see, I feel better sat like this. I tried before I pressed play. I tried to sit how I thought was like normally, and I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel right. It's not a matter of that I feel safe, it's about feeling right. And I've noticed and been thinking about that a little bit more since we talked. And there's lots of things that I do to make myself feel right, which I really never noticed, or that I just accepted that's how I liked things. But I've been thinking more of them. Yeah, they are ways of keeping me safe or protected, and just like if I give examples, just like about like we talked about like how I sit, but even like where I sit in a room, and like when I go anywhere, or like when I went to meetings with work, it was like I'd get there first so I could sit in a certain position, or like if I'm going somewhere, like even on a train, I wouldn't let work book me a seat on a train. I'd have to book my own train so I know what I was getting, where I was getting it, what time it was, what it fitted in with all my routine, where I was sat in the carriage, which carriage I wanted. I wanted control over that rather than somebody just saying this is where you're sitting. Um, and so like,
Well, then what happens before that? And it's looking at what happens before that, because is it that you can then have a visual almost like you've already, and I'm repeating the like as well because
mm,
I'm picking it up. So what, as we were talking then, it was like that gap
mm,
of the filler word like,
mm.
and I'm just now repeating your filler word like. It's amazing, isn't it? How
Osmosis.
we hear things and then we start to use filler words, and yeah, I don't particularly like having this filler word to be honest with you. So so does it give you a visual to be safe? So you have an image then of the carriage, so you can do the journey before you actually get there. Is it part of that, or is it something else?
I think it's part of that and something else, because I like to um like, yeah, I can visualize it and I can plan it, and so it's not, because I don't like spontaneity. I'm not knowing what's going on. So there's that sort of like a level of control and prediction, and but there's also that like, yeah, I'm like, um,
It's
that
all like.
that I can sort of like judge where I am near the exit, or whether somebody's going to be sitting next to me, or whether I want to be emmed in, which I don't want to be emmed in. I want to be on the edge so that I can get out if need be.
So your safety is all about that.
Escape.
Yeah, your escape route.
Yeah.
So literally when you're planning anything to travel, you're planning your escape route.
Mm.
Yeah,
Like I don't
yeah.
like buses and stuff, because I feel that I can get trapped on a bus because there's only like one entrance and exit.
Mm.
And so if I go somewhere, I prefer to either walk. So even if it's miles, like I walked an hour and 3/4 today to get here, because that's better and fits better with me than trying to get on a bus, or um, even a train. I can sort of like manage them with a bit of pre-planning and stuff like that. But it's these things that I've never sort of like noticed, or I just take as a given. I don't like buses, and not giving it much thought why, or I'm not sitting there, or I want to even going to cinema and stuff, I want to pick where I'm sitting. I want to be on end. I want to be this. And it does seem to be that escape route, but also having limited people close to me. And why I'm thinking about that is because it's just coming to my mind, and I know I've mentioned it before in passing in about something else. But when I was in my spin addiction phase, and I used to do like 4 spin classes every day, I used to have to get there early to pick my bike, what it became. And everybody thought, well, oh, somebody sat on your bike, or I've saved you your bike, I've put a towel on it, and that kind of thing. Even decorated for my birthday when I got there and stuff, which was really kind. But
it's also,
and I didn't think about it, but the reason is,
Yeah.
if somebody stopped and said, why do you need that bike? Say, well, there's nobody behind me, there's nobody at the side of me, there's nobody in front of me, there's a gap at the side, it's on the end. Spin is done in the dark, so you can't see, and it's very loud music, so your senses are dumbed down. But yet where that bike is, it was next to the door, and there was a slit of light in the door, so I felt safe and I could escape. And those kind of things that I just go, don't know, it's just my bike, I want to sit there, I don't feel right anywhere else.
So people unwittingly were colluding,
Yeah.
with the agreement that you're in danger.
Yeah.
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 not
But nobody
really
knew about it. And just
Did you?
I guess yes and no. It felt right sitting there, and on occasion, there were occasions where I sat somewhere else and I had a panic attack and had to leave. I just couldn't cope with somebody behind me, or a whole row behind me, somebody either side and somebody in front of me. I just felt so that I couldn't get out. It just felt so overwhelming that I had to leave because I just didn't feel right. And I found that I like space, or limited people in close proximity. There's always seems
because
to be
your proximity was taken when you were raped.
Yeah.
Overstepped your boundary.
And a lot of the activities that happened when I were abused were with somebody behind me, and so I don't like that kind of position where somebody, like, I'm all right in a chair with a back, but sitting on a stool or something like that, I don't like that.
You've got the solidness to know that
I want to be protected. Yeah, like I'm all right if I go for my hair cutting, I'm sitting in a solid seat with somebody behind me, but like on a buffet or something like that, I wouldn't feel comfortable. And just thinking back to, you can tell it's been going on in my mind. I'm thinking all these things like, oh yeah, even about like drinking alcohol. I think that's a safety thing where I'd never really put it like that. I don't drink alcohol, and initially when I was becoming an adult and everybody was going out drinking, that was when my eating disorder started, the anorexia nervosa. So I'm not having alcohol, it's got calories in, I'm not drinking calories, bad enough eating them, I'm not drinking them. And that kind of thing were going through my mind. And then it'd be, well, I don't really like it, so I'm not bothered about it. But thinking about it, it's, I want to be 100% alert, and I don't want any of my senses dumbed down or be put in a vulnerable position. And I don't like being around people who have had alcohol when their inhibitions are down and they can't pick up on my signals to keep away. When I have been out on the rare occasion, and people have been drinking around me, they can't pick up on my signal to keep away from me. Well, they might approach me and join in, or start, random strangers talking to me, and I just can't deal with that.
As well, it's looking at, for for you in your experience when we're going to the fight, flight, freeze, or accept. And so, because you're in constantly in this flight position that you want to flee all the time, the thing that we normalize abuse as I think it was Dr. Sebi said, if you love yourself, you love the world. And if you don't love yourself, you don't love the world. And part of that, what that means is that we agree abuse in society. So when we get older, we don't like hearing this ego voice in our head, and it's quite evil. And that really is it really tells you that your environment's pretty bad then. As we call in therapy, a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. So it just lets you know that your environment is pretty evil, it's pretty bad. And so we ever have Stockholm syndrome to trust the system. That's what I meaning to say. So what people do then is majority of people will elect to go out, and you've had the pleasure pain zones knitting together. We've had so much pain, we've had a hard day at work, now we're going to have the pleasure of drinking. Well, actually, drinking is a form of abuse because you're poisoning your body with a substance. And not only that, you're dampening your senses down because the 6-year-old's chattering to you. Do you see what I mean? So the 6-year-old, that's the theory of children running around in adults' bodies, is literally that. That's what's happening, is that your inner child is still trying to keep you safe. And so is everybody else's inner child still trying to keep them safe. But most people think, well, I'm okay. It's like if you've got a chattering voice in your head, you're not. It's like we've all got running around with a 6-year-old child that's telling us what to do all day long. The child's just trying to say, don't do that, you shouldn't do that. And also repeating all the criticisms, the judgments, not good enough, all of those lies that we were programmed with when you were young. So for you, you're in that I'm going to stay in the flee state, in that survival. It sounds like that experience when others are drinking, they might go into accept in part of survival, just getting it over with. So quite often we think maybe I'm the only one that's being abused in the room. Well, actually, other people have as well. It just might be normalised, or they have in a way where I want to dampen down these senses because they cause me too much trouble. Well, as you don't want to dampen down yours because you're fearing the trouble that might come. I'm not saying nobody else is fearing it, but ultimately people are usually drinking to dampen something down that's going on in the mind. Even if it's a hard day at work. So we're dampening down the wrong that we're doing to ourselves by doing more wrong to ourselves. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm sort of like you say, doing the opposite, that I don't want to be dumbed down. I want to be on alert.
Yes.
And sometimes I can get on such an alert that I miss things because I'm so preoccupied with doing stuff. I miss stuff.
Well, the world isn't as we see it. Like people say, oh, you need to come back to reality, or there isn't a reality. There really isn't a reality. There's no such thing as a reality. The world isn't as we are seeing it. The world is as we are. So for each individual, the world is as you are. So if you're in fear, your world is going to look for fear, and it's going to miss the good stuff. So then your belief system then will say it's all bad. It's either all good or all bad. So it's gonna be one or the other. And it's going to be all bad and then the way that we think, if you could have a little bit of good and a little bit of bad, or people believe, you can't have a little bit of good without a little bit of bad. And it's like, because that's what we've been programmed with. But how do you know if there are people that have different thoughts because they've gotten rid of their ego chatter, they've worked on their inner child, and it's no longer running their life? Do you see what I mean? So the witcher gurus and people like that. So it's our belief. We believe in abuse. We are abusers. because we do abuse. I mean, when somebody spoke about there was a spider that was bothering them, and it's like you're going to kill something because, and imagine what it's like being in the house of a murderer. You're a murderer, but we don't see it like that because we've normalized that kind of abuse that we do. These creatures do not matter. Their life does not matter. We can't create their life, but our ego thinks it's so superior that we have the right to do those things. And it's like, well, you can do them. It doesn't mean you've got the right to do them. But we don't think about many abuses that we put upon ourselves and others, because in the homogeneous group, if everybody's doing it, you know, when you're at school, they said if he jumped off a bridge, would you? And the answer really is yes, because most people do. Yeah, so it's that pattern that we have a pattern from childhood, like Sunday lunch, as I've said many times, that we constantly repeat in adulthood, but we don't live our adult life. We live our childhood life. That's why people are chasing things, or they're working really hard to get the carrot that doesn't exist. Because the child's ever to find its humanness, to say, am I good enough yet? Am I good enough yet? Am I good enough yet? It's like you were born good enough, but you were taught a lie.
Yeah.
To keep you going.
Yeah, and like that you say about living your adult life as your child, I can see that in how I sleep, how I dress when I'm, and how I dress always, but how I dress when I'm asleep.
Yeah.
There's always that element of, even though I didn't know I was doing it, it must be that element of protection, of thinking that abuse is going to happen and could happen anytime, even if I'm in a house on my own.
Because your
I'm
mind's
still protecting myself.
Yeah, the same for everyone. Your mind's now being programmed to be a prisoner. So it's a very good trick. That your mind is now your prisoner, and so nobody has to put handcuffs on you. That's why you learn, like I say, from school, from a factor learning machine. Most should have to got to fear. When you've got all them implanted into you, then you can go along. You're not going to go very far. It's like, oh, they're in the garden. They're not going to go very far. And that's ultimately what you're going to do as an adult. You're not going to go very far, only as far as already been orchestrated for you. But ultimately, it's already been orchestrated for you. So you might think you're getting somewhere on the treadmill. You're not. It just fakely looks that way. And so, but because your mind's your prisoner, and your mind is your prisoner, is your experience. How does it keep me prisoner? Even when I'm alone.
Yeah.
Even when I'm alone, in my own head, it keeps me a prisoner, because I will do this, this, and this based on something that happened. Even despite today, I'm safe today. My mind tells me that I'm in danger. My mind has a conversation about people attacking me.
Yeah.
My mind has a conversation of that will go wrong.
Yeah, and how I'm like practically breaking the lock on the door because I'm checking it that many times.
Yes.
Even when I'm in and it's daylight and things like that, like you say, that is playing in my head.
Exactly.
I've just got to check it, but just in case I didn't check it right.
And it becomes that belief from that expectancy. You expect I expect them to be like that. I expect when people go, oh, you're not as I thought you were. Because somebody else might have an idea in their mind and have an expectancy. And then they might say, oh, she's like that. And then, you're not as I thought you were. Because, she said you were like that. Or people often just believe that person and treat the person as a certain way. But it's not how they are. It's how we perceive them. So it brings out a part of them that looks like our narrative. So then we'll say that person is that based on my thinking about them. Do you see what I mean? Rather than, no, that's based on me. It's not based on them. Does that?
Yeah, and I see how that fits in with what I thought about myself when I was growing up, and I had all these. They were seen as me being awkward, or I always want my own way because I want to sit there. I'm sitting there. We're not going there. We're not going in there. And I want to go here, and we're sitting over here, and I'm not wearing that, and this, that, and other. So when as a child growing up, I was seen as awkward, or you always want your own way. Early adulthood, it got the name OCD, that they picked up on some of my behaviours. And then it's like now it's thinking, leaving all those two and thinking about not just that I'm doing these things, but why, what is it providing me? Like the safety, that unconscious need to feel that I'm not going to get attacked, even though I haven't been for many years. And it's just how different people perceive it.
Yeah, and it's been attacked in your mind, and now how it's perceived is that rather than look at a trauma, we're just gonna you know, make up a label, and then we can almost make money off your trauma, because we're going to give you a label that we can feed you something with. So we'll just feed you a medication, and we'll make money off of that.
So it could be given the label like OCD, which a lot of my behaviours have been given, the ones that I've shared, but also it could just be put under the banner of, when people are talking about being trauma informed, it's just being hypervigilant. So it's like labelling it, but thinking about actually what that feels like, you know, to sit in those places that don't feel right, to lie in bed in a different position and then think, no, I can't, that doesn't feel right, that doesn't feel right. And that's what it feels like to me. It's about feeling right. It's not, I've never connected it with feeling safe. It's just about feeling right. Like, oh, I can't sit that way or do that move in yoga, you know, even when I'm fully clothed, because it doesn't feel right.
Because of that exposure you spoke about before, and also spoke about having the alarm clocks, because it's your safety thing to be able to have that, to make sure that you're kind of doing what your prison voice is telling you to do now, because you've learned that, you know, that fear from society. So it's that, you know, doing. So that's what the majority of people are doing. The voice of must, should, have to, got to, and criticism are not good enough, and all these kind of things that we do to each other. But we're actually doing it to ourselves every time we say it, because, you know, as karma goes, if you're angry with somebody, you have to feel the anger first. As it says, whatever you do to others has been done to you. And you have to feel it first. If you're happy in yourself, you're happy with others. If you're healthy in yourself, you're healthy. If you love yourself, you love others. If you're critical in yourself, you criticize of others. So literally, we're just letting everybody know what we are. This is my beingness, and this is what I've learned growing up, and this is what I'm showing to you. So because we're showing that, you know, sometimes you, well, I can't really take offense then. Because, you know, even though we do, we attach that to ourselves because we feel not good enough, so it gets in. But ultimately, you know, if you go somewhere and that person's nasty towards you, it's like, well, you know, as I say, if you've got shit in the bag, that's what you're going to get out of it. If you've got roses in the bag, that's what you're going to get out. And that's ultimately, it's the law of karma, that whatever you've got inside of yourself, you're going to project onto others. So quite often you can see people's illness because we're always exposing ourselves to each other in, you know, in that way. How are you feeling after that?
It feels really quite lighter. That's the word I can think of, knowing that there's, when you think about it like that, there's a logical reason why I might do things a certain way, or like things a certain way, rather than just because I do keep those labels of being awkward and just wanting stuff my own way. And
all
it's
the
quite
defective labels that you got with those, it's like these defective labels, like the arrogance of the ego is to say that all things in nature are defective and only our chemicals can make them better, which is quite the arrogance, isn't it? Because it's just about, we're just about business.
Yeah, it's quite, I don't know whether to say freeing, but it's quite, that it's not just me. There's a reason behind, even though some people might think, why is there a reason that she always has to wear footwear and can't be barefoot or can't wear anything other than trainers or solid shoes? I couldn't wear a flip-flop, about being sexually abused as a 6-year-old. And it's like, I can think now, well, I want shoes that I can run away in. I want something that I can make a quick getaway in. You can't in high heels. I've never wear it. And it's quite freeing knowing that rather than just thinking, oh, I'm just a bit weird.
But you know, it's like that every day. You've got this getaway plan. I
Yeah.
have my getaway plan ready to escape anything. But the thing that I'm not escaping is the prison of my mind.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I'm trying to, now, because I am physically safe, the only thing that I'm running away from is my memories and the stuff that I'm telling myself with me.
But you're not, you're actually keeping your memories alive because you're telling them they're still beneficial right now.
Yeah.
So you're keeping them alive and you kind of stay in this loop. And it's that's why it's an hamster wheel. Whatever we're thinking is the thing that we created.
Yeah, it does
so
feel
we'll
like
do
that.
certain things to create, like people say, you know, so I'm just not brainy enough to do that. It's like there's no such thing really as brainy enough. Your brain works.
Mm.
Do you see what I mean? It's like saying I'm not handy enough. Like you've got. Do you see what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. So when somebody says that, it's like that means you're not going to bother to use that part of your brain. But who's choosing to not bother to use it? So I can't do any of that. How do you know? Well, I've given my brain an order that I can. You know, if I forget, you're giving your brain an order to forget then. And then it's like, you know, well, we do memory exercise rather than just saying I remember, because if you keep repeating to your brain that you want to get up at 6 o'clock on the morning, then it will do what it literally does what you tell it to do, unless you have an ingrained belief behind in your subconscious that says no, you can't do that, because and where did you get that from? Somebody would have told you it. You can't do that. That's not for you. You know, oh, she's got all the brains, but you haven't. Many people live by that. They get to adulthood and it's like, oh, it's because I've got all the brains. It's like, what did you, realistically, when you look at that logically, do you think your parents shared brains out? We can't even make a human being, so how can we say these things? But we do, we believe in them.
It's that hamster wheel, I like that. It's a really good analogy, how we keep ourselves on it.
6-year-old. And it doesn't matter how old you get, still running around, playing out the same things. And you can see it. You can see people doing it and they recognise they're doing that to themselves because they don't know how to get off.
But I guess recognising it means then you do have the choice to get off.
Well,
if you don't recognise it, you don't, do you? Because you're not, don't think you're on it.
Yeah. But when you recognise it, it can be, it's not just as simple then as stepping off, because now your subconscious is programmed with it, and that's more.
So I'm not going to go out of here and wear a nice pretty dress with high heels and just
you can you can if you want, that's your choice, but it's like, can you? Will your prison voice tell you something else? Because although consciously now you're aware of it, you become consciously aware of it, could you do it? You're going to hear all the chattering voice going and saying, like you've just gone, no, all the actions and in your nervous system, everything's like, so that's a different matter.
Thanks.
You're welcome.